Hello and welcome to the Birthing Conscious Humans podcast. This is the second series with water. And today I have the pleasure and the honor of speaking with Matt Thornton. Hi, Matt.
Hello, Matt.
Who is a water sommelier, an Emoto Hado instructor, but I'd probably call him a visionary for water who's bringing about change for and with water on the planet right now. So thank you, Matt, for everything that you do for water.
Well, thank you, dear sister. It's a real delight to be here. And I think what you're creating is very special, very unique, and indeed very powerful. And it brings in many characteristics of water, very divine and very special characteristics, firstly to discuss and then to bring it into realization. So I look forward to maybe contributing to your vision. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that deeply. The conversation today, the theme of the conversation is a container for birth. And what I really sort of mean behind that is water being the natural container for life. Water is where life grows, but also the actual physical container of water and how that impacts the quality, the resonance of the water, and also the people in the water, so to speak. And I guess through this conversation, I'm hoping to have more feedback from you on a more, let's say, in-depth understanding of how the container affects water and helps us remember more of who we are, which is where I'm going with this podcast.
I think that's a sorry, have I stopped your flow? I think it's a fabulous place to begin, because there's many characteristics, as I said before, to discuss, and water is very transdisciplinary. So we need multiple subjects to understand they all and to overlap between them or flow between all these beautiful subjects on every single level. But also water is multidimensional as well. So we need to think about not only in the physical, but the material properties, but then getting into the informational, the energetic properties, getting into the cosmic and the consciousness aspects, and finding out, certainly from a birthing process, how the divine, how we come through into form and then into the physical, and how the kind of effectively the soul is embodied into the body, and what role does water play throughout all of this. So we need to work on many, many levels, and it's a very beautiful exploration.
Which is why I guess, Matt, I found such resonance in our previous conversation on World Water Day, because I feel you coming from this multidimensional, sort of interdisciplinary understanding of water, and as an introduction to the podcast series as well, and how the therapists that come in later to speak about birth and water, there's a better understanding of the foundations going into this, let's say, awareness of consciousness of water. So I'm really grateful, because I perhaps if you tell us a little bit more of your relationship with water, then people listening will sort of have my understanding of you as a multidimensional and interdisciplinary human being, I'll say at this point.
I don't think I've ever been described that before, but I feel it. I feel like I've kind of awoken to the fact is that, yeah, I'm an interdisciplinary, I'm a generalist. And I think we need to look at every single angle. And also the fact is looking at the multidimensional aspects, as we've spoken about before. My background, I mean, everybody has a relationship with water. It may be very subtle, okay, or it may be unconscious. But then when we gradually wake up to it, water becomes a guide to life. And it guides you as to where you need to flow and what you need to kind of not only understand, but to experience. So my relationship with water is about understanding and experience, and those two intertwine between each other. Now, sometimes experience comes first, or sometimes you're unconscious to the experience and wake up to it later. And then latterly, understanding might come later. At the moment, the dominant thought system on the planet is more westernized, it's very linear thinking, whereas water you have to go beyond the conceptual mind somewhat to grasp it, and that might come through experience. We ask ourselves, you know, why do we love being by waterfalls and water and the sea and the ocean and in nature? Water plays a significant part to all of this. My introduction came through aviation, actually, and I'm still an aviator per se. So I've kind of graced the skies as an aviator for maybe 35 years, maybe more than I don't know. And so you get blessed to have nature bestow your surroundings with this most magnificent of shows created simply by the movement of water and light from the sun. And it immerses you in this kind of forever changing poetry of nature. And so I actually must have dedicated an entire year of my life just being immersed in cloud, initially without thinking about it, and then becoming very conscious about how close I am to nature.
Yeah.
So it gives you a very different perspective. Now, I had a military background, but we don't need to go into that right now. But it kind of had that warrior kind of background in me. But the water came through much later, and it came simply through drinking good water. Now, what is good water? We'll talk about it in a minute, but the body knows. People ask the question. I love asking this question or being asked, but we can ask it in a different way just through my experiences. Is what did the water affect me? I didn't know I had brain fog until I drank good water, and it took me to the stratosphere in terms of clarity of thought. And having a bit of a performance background, one has to kind of explore this journey as to what is going on here, because my background, like many people, is simply water is water is water. I didn't have a relationship on a conscious level. And so it awoke me to this amazing levels of clarity of thought that I'd never experienced before. It was thousands and thousands of times it wasn't just clarity, it was the purity of thought. Take it back a few years as well. I'd studied the internal arts, the divine arts of Tai Chi and Qigong from a great Eastern master who still teaches me 20 years later. And that had given me understanding of the subtle energies in the human body and movement and the quality of movement. And he takes a much more consciousness-based level of movement. So my philosophy comes from more from the East of understanding. And when drinking this water, I realized that it had a coherence to it, it had a structure to it. And people were talking about water structure about 15 years ago. And this is when I first got into it. And that led me on a journey. The only person speaking about this, or apparently speaking about this, was Masaru Emoto. So I knew I had to meet him. A week later, I met him. Would you believe it? It just happened like that. Okay. And so I studied under him, under his Hado, as one of his Hado instructors. Now, what is Hado? It didn't mean anything to me at the time. I didn't know. I didn't care. I just needed to be in his presence and understand.
Yeah.
And Hado really, they might describe it now simply as a vibrational wave, but it's not really that. It's the origin of the wave. It's the quality of the wave. So it's not the wave itself. It's the shape of the wave and the qualitative aspect of it. So you could describe it more deeper as the intrinsic vibrational pattern of everything at its deepest level, the smallest unit of energy. And the basis of that is the energy of human consciousness. So human consciousness is based right in the most minutest aspects.
Refined.
Yeah. So, and that led me on a journey of understanding, coming from that Eastern philosophy and the consciousness aspect of water, and then having a physics background as well. And a research background from aviation. I was a test and operational guy. So I had an analytic kind of linear brain and an Eastern.
Yeah.
And that brought me into the new water science, which is now amazing, astonishing levels of pioneering frontier science, Nobel Prize winners amongst it all. And they're really exploring the anomalous properties of water, which has led to a complete mystery of water for hundreds of years. And got very complicated. And now new developments, new technologies have come out that are allowing us to see water in a different way. And the main themes is really structure, coherence. Okay. And what I mean by that is its relationship to the environment. Okay. And memory, water memory. There's a lot to talk about water memory. And there's various types of how we think about water memory. And then the other one is water consciousness. Not only that, water is affected by consciousness intentions, it plays a key role in the dynamics of consciousness throughout the universe. So it's looking like that water is the physical matrix for all consciousness interactions throughout the universe.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a beautiful, not just a beautiful, but a very, precise and refined, I guess, understanding or context for my perception of a developing embryo, a developing human being who's laying the, let's say, the crystalline foundation structures in his or her human body, in which pulsation is the first language through which that developing embryo interacts with the world around him or her, receiving information from an equally pulsating mother and the environment around her. So a developing embryo will be able to understand those precise and delicate wavelengths that you're talking about in terms of consciousness, but also that water is able to pick up the most subtlest of wavelengths, which then become over time, not just a 9-month experience, but, you know, maybe 20, 30 years into adulthood, we can start having a cognitive understanding or remembering of the impact of those pulsations.
Well, water is a water consciousness and life force has infinite expressions, and at the moment we need to break out of the limitations that all of science is based upon electromagnetic or the physical matrix, or and move into the vibrational fields, and then the subtle energy fields of which the divine expression comes through into and slow down into the vibration, then into the electromagnetic, so it contains the whole. When we look at embryology, we emerge from the whole. We're not constructed of parts that become the whole. No, we emerge from the whole. And the concept of biology, unfortunately, is being militarized effectively right now. And we need to revert back to the natural, more quantum aspects of biology. We're looking at the effects of waves as well. So it's like we come through the whole, and it's an invitation, a dance between the sperm and the egg. And it's a cosmic dance that starts the movement. And you're absolutely right. The infinite expressions come from different types of movement. And this is why Tai Chi and the subtle energies and understanding the qualitative aspects of movement. Every movement has something. So the formative forces creating this movement, from which form is created. And the form is an expression of the energy that's contained within it. Every form, every being.
Which, if I weave it in, would be a couple preparing to conceive 3 months before conception, let's say, are engaging in Tai Chi or other forms of physical, emotional, and spiritual preparation to conceive this life form.
I think the whole process from, as you say, preparation to conception to pregnancy, and then the birthing process, and then not that we want to break it down, it's an entire episode of
a continuum.
Yeah. And it's a beginning of a cycle, lots of energetic shifts throughout that, and a lot of subtle energies, changing throughout, and a lot of interactions of joining, merging of energies to create the process that we know as life.
Which, in my experience or understanding, water almost behaves like this lubricant, softening, allowing spirit to become form, to take form. this sort of merging element from one dimension into the other. And it takes 9 months for a baby to be able to come out into the world ready for the impact of gravity, ready for the impact of not being in water or not being pure spirit. So water is this sort of transition stage of merging, of connecting, like you say, of blending all the information together so that it can be contained in one whole in physical form.
It is the container of all life. It holds the templates of all life forms. And yes, exactly right. We're looking at a lot of the indigenous wisdoms, and they have always known this, and we're just waking up and remembering to realizing this, that water is the container of the spirit. It is the container of consciousness, and it's how consciousness can be seen. So there is a marriage between water and consciousness. Hado, as we spoke about, the qualitative aspects of everything, and water, they can't be separated. So one cannot happen without the other. And as we look at, if we look at some of the creative stories from indigenous wisdoms, and obviously biblical and other sacred texts stories, they all say the same thing. No one talks about the creation of water. It was already there. So we can look at it, it's older than, and science knows this, it's older than the sun, it's older than all the suns. So it was already there. But we confuse water with being this physical substance, and it is not. Okay, it is not a physical substance. Substance is the wrong word. I cannot give it justice to give a word that actually describes what it is. We have to think of this on the multi-dimensional level, effectively. And this point of realization came to me by a great Samoan elder, a king actually, when I was chatting to him in Hawaii, which incidentally, Hawaii, the breath of God, by the waters of God, and is the spirit of God. It's the whole kingdom of Hawaii, because it's a kingdom of Hawaii, means it's all about the breath, the spirit, and the waters of life. But he told me that the greatest of all the waters, because we were talking more on how the evolution of science has caught up to affirm indigenous wisdoms. And we then moved into what is the greatest of all the waters. And he said, Divai Aloha, the waters of love. And it took a while for me that to sink in, is what that really truly meant. And that really kind of conjures up the multidimensional aspects of water that we think it's in the physical, but no, it is beyond that. And Joseph Grander, who's an Austrian scientist or water researcher, effectively, he passed away sadly about 10 years ago. Brilliant technology he's come out with, which has a cosmic reset into the water, effectively, is the way to look at this. He described water as being more cosmic than earthly. And if you think about it, there's more water out in the universe than there is any other molecule. I mean, obviously you get the atoms of hydrogen out there, and it's like there's a lot of it out there. And each star is born through, each proton star is born through a huge mass, trillions and trillions times more than what's on Earth, through water, some kind of plasmic kind of water. So it seems that entire stars, galaxies could be birthed through water, not only ourselves as well. So it allows the birthing process of any form to come through.
I think what's happening, or what I've been perceiving through sitting with myself this past year, and I think more and more people have been invited into themselves than ever before, has been this shift from seeing water as something outside of us that we drink and put inside of us, to really realizing this, we are water. So the body is a container of fluid, which we have the capacity to change, impact, refine, tune at will. So rather than sort of, and it's the same with a birthing human being. A baby is used to listening to her mother's heartbeat. She's learning to attune to what's happening outside of her. She then goes to school and learns how to think outside of her. And now there's sort of a calling to, hang on a minute, what if reality starts on the inside? What if I'm the creator from the inside out? And this is coming about supporting parents to support their pregnancy and their newborn life, their child, of connecting through their waters to their developing embryo, let's say. So inviting parents inward to connect to their baby that's growing inside of them. And then also, as a young baby or young child, to start reflecting inward. So how is your water feeling today? Not just how are you feeling today, how is your water feeling today? And when I ask that question in the pool, very often the kids will use words that are describing the water they see, but in fact they're describing the water inside them. The water feels sad. It's the very beginnings of an education that says, okay, the outside world is a reflection of my inside world through water.
A number of things I'd like to comment on that is that Masaru Emoto would say that, you know, and I think we all know this, that children are much more connected to their water nature or their divine nature, yes, because they're that close to the divine, and also the water is a lot purer. Absolutely. Within them. Yes. It's like however we've constructed the society and the structure of society impacts us on multiple levels, you know, going right only from our immediate environment to our society, to a collective, to our ancestors as well. Let's not forget the ancestors as well, because in every drop of water holds all the secrets. It's, and we'll talk about, you know, we can talk about memory if you like, and it holds all the mysteries, all the magic, all the lore, all the stories and all the love. And as the fact is, we are water, and it's a constantly cycling being throughout us, and we're sharing it. It's a shared being, effectively, that your waters affect how your consciousness affecting your internal oceans, your internal waters affecting the environment around you, which then affects everybody else. So there is a constant flow of information and communication. We are a resonance machine, not only in shape and geometry, but through water as well. And through the impact of consciousness, even how we move, the quality of our movement is effectively dictated by the quality of consciousness. And it's multiple layered. But I feel that, yeah, that's why Masaru Emoto set up the Emoto Peace Project, because he knew that he wanted to teach all children on earth the true nature of water and the great power of our thoughts, our words, our prayers, and our actions. But this is not only to all children on earth, we're all children of the earth, okay? We just wake up and forget this. And actually, when you teach children this, they're sort of looking at you thinking like, yeah, we know this. It's like the adults going, oh, and the children become the teachers. And we just need to hold that memory and hold exactly what that is. And the indigenous communities still have that. They have uncontaminated wisdoms going through. What happened to us thousands of years ago, our consciousness separated from right to more left brain, and went down a more logos as opposed to a more, you know, mythos pathway. Few traveled the mythos pathway, but now, you know, the more advanced quantum physics is coming more into the mythos. But then in the middle of this, you have the indigenous wisdoms uncontaminated since time began, that have this knowledge there. And we're now in dialogue with them as well, because they're realizing that, you know, we've had to wake up ourselves to remember and to show the fact that we are trustworthy individuals to carry such wisdom. And I think it's our own consciousness that's been polluted. And we can talk, you know, it's another thing about pollution, the source of pollution, where that will come from. And this all impacts the quality of the water at any level. Absolutely. So our consciousness will have a direct influence on the quality of the water that we're drinking, and on the environment and those around us.
Absolutely. And this is how working with supporting birth and pregnancy and newborn life in water, this sort of preparation of self to enter into a body of water with a pregnant woman or a newborn child, and being aware of my awareness, the work I've done on myself, the integrity with which I hold space is so alive and resonant when in water. And I'm pretty sure why my path has taken so much time and practice to unfold. It's not about, yeah, I'll build a pool, I'll pour some money into it, get up and going. It's a personal path. It's a personal practice to refine that awareness, that vibration, either as a therapist, a practitioner in water, or as a parent. What am I bringing to my waters supporting newborn life? And I guess what my vision has been, in the past, we've tend to see birth as, before birth and after birth. Before birth, we don't remember. There's life after birth. And now we're understanding birth as a continuum, an uninterrupted continuum. So what would happen if we could support the entire pregnancy in water regularly? So there's a fluid continuum, ideally a water birth. And then let's say at 40 days or 3 months, it's questionable, bringing baby back into the water. So if there's that continuum and that awareness from a parent's perspective, would then babies remember more of who they are? That's what I'm towards.
It's an incredible question.
Sorry, Matt, sorry for taking the space. The understanding is, if the container I'm creating allows baby to remember more of who they are, so this memory doesn't shut down, then we're allowing them to bring these precious, unique gifts and knowledge from where it is babies are coming from, and that it remains alive and continues, that it doesn't shut down and repeat old patterns, because it's this new understanding and knowledge and remembering that we need as a humanity right now to move forward in a new direction.
Obviously, it's not a level of my expertise in terms of the birthing process, but birth has an aspect of separation in it between the mother and the baby. So how do we keep that connected, and how do we activate the higher energetic qualities in the body and sustain us through our daily connections? But let's bring it back slightly into the womb. The womb has a geometric shape, which has and also the amniotic fluid in there, which has been tested, by the way, is highly structured and produces the most amazing water crystallography.
Yeah,
as in the patterns and the structures that can be seen microscopically and potentially macroscopically, not been done yet. So how do we continue this energetic qualities into the birthing container? Looking at the energetic spectrum of the quality of the room. I'm not looking at energy from a classical point of view here. We're moving beyond, the secondary motion, like it can only be measured when it's motion. We're moving right into the subtle formative fields, which can be detected and measured through geometric resonance. And so firstly, we're probably looking at the energetic spectrum of the quality of the womb and find out what are those qualities. I'm going to use the term biogeometry now, okay, which is really looking at it's the physics of quality, the study of subtle energies. It works with nature's design language, and everything has a qualitative aspect to it. So we're looking at shape and color and form and proportions, angle as well, very important. It's like the science of universal harmonics, and you can bring it into practical as the design of nature's design and form, but that's the practical aspect. When we look at what it's really looking for is a centering quality. Everything has a center, or you can create the center within any object. This mouse here or whatever, or a pen, you can center the energetic quality. We don't do it because we are we're unconscious of this. This goes back to Egyptian understanding, and actually they believed in rebirthing as well. So the pyramid potentially is a rebirthing
Container.
container through ritual and ceremony, and everything should be ceremony, because ceremony is the common ground. So, you know, the conception, as we say it all the way through, is done in ceremony, and it's asking, intentionalizing the divine qualities to come in. But let's go back into this centering quality, because remembering already exists in this centering quality. There are 3 attributes of biodrometry that you can measure that show that the divine attributes are there, and then have this centering kind of quality. So we can design according towards that. We can measure the energetic spectra of the womb, and then look at any external designs, not only the container of the birthing container, but the chamber from which it's housed in as well, which is the local environment. And then we're going to be looking at the water. How are we looking at the structure of the water? Are we going to, and then looking at sound, because the obviously the heartbeat of the mother and the baby are now together, and at some point there's a separation. How do we keep that? How do we keep that birthing process, that connection as high as possible? Because I understand childbirth, I had a child, I can only speak through theory and story. You know, the trauma of childbirth, that there could be quite a lot of trauma there, but we can take care of this, okay, preconception wise, through pregnancy and birth, because all of these show up in the resonant fields of the mother, and hence will be into the baby as well, and into the local environment, whether it's the water, and into the environment. And we can do all this with a geometric resonance, or centering quality, and understanding of where we are in our consciousness, and that beautiful connection between the mother and the baby. And all this can be cleared through biogeometry, through this centering process. Now, at the time of birth, in fact, throughout all, there are some amazing energetic shifts. And it's at that time we get things like a personal wavelength attuned to us as well. And supposedly, according to Aboriginals, brilliant, amazing, uncontaminated wisdom. At conception, we're born to a song line. You know, we're born proximate to a song line. And so that's the energetic residue of the ancestors. And they're the ones that created the topography of the environment, so that at some point we're tuned to the waters of our birth. And it's like, how do we give that greatest connection as possible? And how do we map out that womb container from a shape wise and a quality wise, through materials, and then bring in the acoustics, the sound of potentially the heartbeat of the mother, which you can bring out and amplify into the water if you want, or you can bring other sounds, or human voice, chant, mantra, something that's resonant. It's all there. All this can be brought into the environment, and
very real. I think what you're describing, you know, it starts off sounding like something out there, astrophysics, but actually when you start thinking about it on a practical level, what it looks like is a pregnant mother coming into the pool and starting to hum to her baby. And all this happens. So water is sort of facilitating this awareness in a real practical, down-to-earth 3D level. It's not just an understanding outside of us. It's actually really possible from the very beginning when we enter a body of water.
And what we shouldn't forget as well, is allow the water to inform the process. So yes, I could, you know, we can give the geometrically perfect shape, possibly of the womb.
What would it be for you, Matt? Do you have an idea of, I mean, I'm looking at the shape of the container at this point, like actually creating this container to support life, incoming life and outgoing life. What would it be for you?
Well, we need to support this evolutionary process going through, and how I do it, and a few discussions I've had as well, is I would emulate the quality of the womb, and that might be a womb shape, okay, because it already has a biogeometric resonance and allows those divine energies to be there in this centering process. So it's harmonized. Think of the word harmonized. We are creating a completely harmonized environment that, according to the environment, is not there, but it's because it's one of them. It's one of us. So it comes into a completely natural environment. The other option would be, if you go more the acoustic side of it or the sonic side of it, is to use either a half dome and mirror it so it's reflective and put sounds through it. But the sounds of the womb would be resonate as well. It's just a different way it reflects the acoustics of that. So I would start with one of those two. Okay, that's the natural shape of birth, is through a womb container. But it's not just mapping it out on what you might copy the shape of the womb. We have to use the geometric resonance, then biogeometric qualities within that. And that also, it means we then look into the materials as well, and which materials hold this resonance.
Yeah.
Okay, and which materials would amplify it. For instance, if you use something like a geopolymer, which they used in Egypt in some of the pyramidal structures, you could embed it with certain crystals, as you say. You might have a crystalline or quartz crystalline structure, but you need it to be smooth. Okay.
Yes.
Smooth for acoustics. Smooth for acoustics. Okay. And also, you don't want to disturb the structure of the water. You want to keep it as highly structured and coherent as possible.
Yeah.
But on that, human consciousness will override all of that. It is the strongest influence by magnitude of, well, I can't even put a number on it, infinite levels of magnitudes, is the consciousness of what's going on. And I think because it's, I wouldn't want to play around with being too much information into water. I just have a highly structured, coherent water that allows consciousness to express itself. And so we allow the water to inform us, as opposed to us doing too much around it, because we are co-creators with water. We're not observers anymore. We are participants in the game of life. And so it has an intelligence that knows where you are in your consciousness and will inform you. And that's the thing. It's in dialogue.
Yeah, in water you cannot hide, like the clarity. It brings it brings a transparency to life, which can be really haunting if you're not prepared to go there with it. But I don't find it. Water doesn't push. It's not. It can be penetrative, but it will only show up what you're ready to show up for.
It's true.
And there's a sort of soft, unconditional, compassionate love or holding that water does. So yes, there's an allowing, and this is in preparation for birth, going into that allowing rather than a doing. But there needs to be an understanding of the responsibility, let's say, as a practitioner or as a baby swimming instructor, because baby swimming instructors get to be with a lot of babies in a pool of water at the same time. So the responsibility of that position, when you become aware of the sort of multi-dimensional responsibility of it, is when I am transmitting through the water, you can, or no, you can't. That is impacting that baby or that family at that moment in time. So it's not just about I'm learning to swim in the water. We are impacting the rest of someone's life.
When we look at water and we have two individuals drinking from the same glass, or taking a sample from the same glass and looking at it through its dynamic structure, in various ways you can do this, whether it's Emoto or other crystalline depiction methods, you'll have a different pattern that is relative to the consciousness of the individual, irrespective that it came from the same water source. So we all have a responsibility for the purity of our consciousness on many levels, not only our thoughts, but our words and our prayers as well, which is why having a group or something like that in resonance, I like chant and human voice that is coming resonant. So at some point, when you bring your focus internally to more externally to the group and to the baby, the sound the intention can be carried, amplified on the sound as well. So there's many things we can do. Not only does your consciousness interact with the water, but obviously anything you do on top of that will interact in the water as well. So it's multiple layers, but you know, the water will inform what it wants to reveal, because consciousness can be revealed in water. It's the only way it can be revealed.
But I've worked with babies and families on land, and I've worked with water. This has all been in preparation to getting to working with birth, and I've been very aware of that. And it's almost arriving at the baby swimming world, or newborn, let's say, aquatics, that is almost accelerating our understanding of babies and children and the way that we educate, more than in the classroom, more than on land, because a parent bringing their baby to the water gets this feedback all at once. And if the instructor is aware enough, you can sort of drip feed the information through, but also trusting that the water is going to do its work. By the way that we hold space in the water and the awareness of what we're bringing to the water. And this is when I started planning or visioning in my head, okay, so water is, let's say, my path, an honorable path. I'm working with supporting birth and newborn life. What is my ideal container? What is it going to look like? And we've talked about the structure, the sound, the color, the crystalline reflection of light hitting or touching the water, and the combination of that. I think most people that go into building pools kind of think, oh yeah, this is where the chlorine is going to go, this is how the heating is going to work, and temperature is another thing we haven't talked about yet in terms of memory. But if we want to create an even more refined, intentional space, what are the elements we need to be looking at to, let's say, to do our best, at least, in creating a conscious container?
I think we need to start from the consciousness aspect. Okay, we would start with the biogeometric qualities that we would want to be there. So it'd have a centering divine resonance in there, and to emulate what is that first environment we perceive is correct for the baby. And it's either I would suggest it might be a womb shape.
Yeah.
So we're looking at divine qualitative aspects of energy first, and then we go into the physical shape of it, which will probably be the womb. Okay. Then I would look at the Hado aspect, as in the consciousness, the not only where we are in our consciousness as the mother and those involved, the you know, whoever is in the vicinity, and throughout the birthing process, and with the other parent. And we'd look at the qualitative aspects of that. You could surround the environment, the pool and the chamber, with certain Hado symbology or environment that will influence the consciousness. Okay. Then we're looking at the water itself as well. What is the structure? How coherent is that? And redefining the quality, so we can look at the more crystalline structure of it. We can do that before and afterwards. That would be very interesting to look at the effect of the water afterwards. I might consider now getting to the physical attributes is looking at the flow. There's a flow, there's a warmth, okay, that maps the temperature outside. I need to look at the salinity as well, and how saline we want that water to be, that it's comfortable. And temperature, temperature does a couple of things. Okay, temperature not only creates warmth, okay, which creates far infrared, a nice, which would map out the womb, which has more far infrared. You could also bring in color, a more near infrared, so like a red lighting or soft. So we're now coming into the more three-dimensional aspects of how we want that to be calm and very beautiful. The materials we need to be very specific on, and how resonant they are, and the surface as well, so that the surface is acoustically and sonically as pure as we can make it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what information is going to go in there? I suggest we either, you can either amplify the mother's heartbeat into the paw so it continues.
Yeah.
Okay. Or you could have human voice surrounding on the external. You could, very ceremonial and very ritualistic. And it's, you know, as the Egyptian, a lot of this we're talking about as Egyptian knowledge is, it's like a rebirthing process. It depends on where you believe in, you know, and how beautiful you want to create this process, this birthing, which is the beginning of an evolutionary process. Okay. And how harmonized can we make this? And also the fact is as well, the first vision that the baby will have, obviously it's going to be of its mother. But then when he looks around and the sounds and the lights and the form and the harmony, how beautiful would that be? What is that
As a
environment?
beginning to life, as a beginning to life. And when a baby comes back, let's say, to the water, 6, 8, a month, 2 months into their physical life, you can see the remembering. They come to the pool and it's, oh, I know this, hang on a minute. And the body is so alive to the water. It's sort of, they bring their birth story, becomes fully apparent when they return. And it's sort of guiding parent to witness that unfolding so that baby can remember, reconstruct. So their whole birth journey becomes a continuum and fluid rather than a fragmented experience because of, let's say, disharmony, trauma is a heavy word, but all the things that impact the storyline while we're being born. Water at the beginning of our sort of early childhood gives us the chance to sort of smooth that out. So we're not readdressing it 30, 40, 50 years down the line. And we could talk about what that looks like, what the remembering looks like from an adult's perspective, like from a person that can speak and give us feedback, but babies are nonverbal. So the way we are sort of observing the birth story in water with nonverbal beings is very different to the way an adult remembers.
Yes, this is the baby. Remember, water doesn't speak, but it speaks and listens to all languages. It is the master listener of all things, our innermost thoughts. We are partners with water. We are inseparable, conscious participants in this life, and it's life of beauty, and it's a sacred dance. So, what is it? One other aspect that you triggered my mind there is if you went down the half dome, which might be a bit of an easier shape, you could have another one on top. Okay, so you have a really beautiful mirror of acoustics. And I wanted to talk about, because you might have some sound therapists around as well, is that how sound influences water, and water expresses itself infinitely through somatic patterns, obviously, and sound travels faster in water. So it's looking at, you know, it will read our consciousness and our thoughts, but the energy behind them all as well. And any heartbeat, any baby's cry, music, chant, collective, the geometric pattern that's contained in the water, not only in the water itself, but it will bathe every single water molecule in the human body. So if that sound, if that water is say like against a protein or you know, or anything in the cell, it gives it a sonic massage. So what is that sonic massage we are, that vibrational sonic massage that's going on within the human, not only the baby, but within in the mother? How will we want that? And there is certain, you know, sounds and levels you could look at as well if you want to get into that. And I know just the person, John Stuart Reid, one of the world's leading, probably the world's leading somatic experts, he would be a wonderful source of influence. Amazing. And he gave me a lot of this information as well, and it's his history of somatics as well, and his awakening process actually happened in the middle of the Great Pyramid. So here's a great connection with shapes and resonance and sound and water. So, you know, cymatics is very, very important. It contains, you can see all the information, the complexities, the infinite expression that happens when anything is in the vicinity of water.
And exactly on these foundations, on this understanding, when a baby, a child, or even an adult human being comes back to the water, comes back to the womb, the water remembers this information. Everything that's been expressed, intended, pulsated, vibrated, has been recorded through being in the water. There's a sort of realignment with our essence by being in the water. Even just going into the sea, I think people can understand, people listening, you go in, you come back out again, and it's like, oof, coming back to that central axis, coming back to our cells and water molecules feeling vibrant and alive with our own essence. So sort of the water in us comes alive where it might have frozen or become trapped inside of us because of our daily life experiences, let's say.
And remember, it doesn't have to be the same water.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, obviously we're going to clean the water in the birthing pool, and that's why I might have a flow as well to keep it warmth and clean. But the water will remember. It doesn't matter what body of water it is; it will remember.
It'll remember.
So it will
Beautiful.
Instantly bring out the magic of the story. Yeah. So this is another thing as well we perhaps didn't speak about, but it's not only the localized environment and the people that were there, but by distance as well. This is going slightly more complicated, and people tuning in from a distance and talking about how prayer works. When we understand the planes of nature and the levels of consciousness and redefine that, okay, it becomes quite easy to understand and comprehend as to how remote prayer works. And so if relatives and things who want to be there but not there, you know, there's all these different levels we can bring in to ensure there is realignment and purity at the moment of birth. And yes, the alignment that happens when you reconnect back, and it doesn't actually have to be the same space, it has to be any water for that matter, but it's kind of nice to come back to the physical space as well, and to remind yourself of the energetic qualities that were contained within there. And the alignment is key. The alignment is key for all of life. Absolutely. Where we're realigning our thoughts, we're realigning our physical stature, you know, we have to live horizontally effectively, but we should be living and thinking vertically. Alignment, and water will get you there.
And that's how I feel so many people are being attracted to not just being near water, but I think in the past year, we're seeing people taking life decisions to move and live near water as a way of not just surviving, but in being aligned with who they are. We started this conversation talking about mind fog, but in being awake to who we are in our authentic selves. And I really believe that, you know, the rivers, the oceans at the moment are helping us remember all of who we are in this sort of awakening of humanity somehow.
When we look at, and we might research water, I've gone away from that word now, and I'm more of an observer of water at its essence, is water, the great scriptures, great texts say, make your life a prayer. But when you look at cymatics and water crystallography, whether microscopic or macroscopic, some amazing work there, you realize that you're a participant. And it's not about making your life a prayer. It's about waking up to realize that it already is. And to live your life as such in your own unique expression, completely aligned. And it's water becomes the greatest teacher there is to all of us. And when you look at the effects of or you look at the water quality and how it's so degraded, or it can be degraded, and depending on the levels of pollution and collective pollution, this is why I said, you know, the source of all pollution, where is that? However, when you bring in consciousness to it, the rapid nature of its improvement of water health is astronomical. It doesn't go through various levels. It just jumps right back to its original health that it wants, because human consciousness is directly related to the purity of water. So once we start to remember our sacred relationship to water, we've never lost it. We've just been asleep to it.
Asleep to it.
You don't have to learn anything. Now, I got it through drinking water. Somebody else might be by living by water or being birthed in water. But we're all going to go on this water journey. And at some point, there reaches a magical point where it's a point of no return. And everything just turns to reverence towards water, and all life for that matter. And there's no going back. There's no way out. And everybody I know has come on this journey, does the same thing. And you'll become a brother and sister, and you just, whether you're a scientist, a technologist, an environmentalist, an artist, or a mystic, or an indigenous elder, or just a conscious participant, you all have an experience of
common experience,
what you might call universal love for water. And it's when it starts to reveal its magnificence to you is when you open your heart and you love it.
This is it. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And this is closing a class, closing a baby swimming class with thank you, water. Not a nursery rhyme, not big words, just thank you, water, and opening our hearts to that vibration of gratitude instantly shifts the pool. Whether there's 5 people or 10 people or 15, on a heart level of vibration, pulsation that everyone understands.
When we bring back ceremony,
Yeah.
I heard this from an elder in the UK, or via, when we bring back ceremony, everything will change. And when we wake up to realize that everything is effectively prayer, everything will change. And we have a responsibility, and it's yes, it's a big responsibility, but it's not about that as well, because water wants you to play and dance and have joy and fun.
Absolutely. This is.
It wants you to be a little kid.
Absolutely.
It loves children and the joy and the purity and that naturalness.
Yeah. This is it. And I guess this is why I've come back to what I call home, because of that playfulness, that innocence of fun. Just entering water is that happy place for me. And as much as we can get serious about this and cosmic about it, is that playfulness that the heart recognizes as being true and real in the moment, that is a big value of why I work with water.
I commend you on that, and it's a joy to kind of share the water journey with someone as yourself. And I think this is it's a beautiful vision, and it's created a lot of discussion items. I hope we've created quite a few. We can go into, I didn't want to go too deep. We can go really, really deep in some. In fact, we touched on some very deep understandings here.
Absolutely. I think we've done a beautiful job. For sure, this conversation isn't over, and we'll have more opportunities, and especially once this project starts getting underway on a 3D level, which it already is, especially through the water consciousness circles that are happening and that you're part of. I'm just very grateful to have had this 1 hour to really introduce this sort of refinement and sensitivity and multidimensional language that you speak to this precious work. It's very precious to me, and I'm very grateful that you have dedicated your time for this.
Well, I thank you. That's beautifully spoken. I bless you, dear sister. And it's all in service, and there comes a point where it all is service, and it's a critical moment for humanity. I'm not doing it because it's a critical moment for humanity. I'm doing it because it's a call from the soul of humanity that's asking us to reconnect and rebuild our relationship to water, because that's where the magic is. And probably all of humanity's problems are found in our reconnection, our understanding, and our relationship to the magnificence of water. It's who we are. It's what we are. And what is it that connects all beings, all life? It is water, but not just any water, it's organized water. It's the coherence that we bring to it. And that is what connects us all.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. And thank you for listening in.